Turn off your radio.
Yeah, I'm
It's still
trying
on.
to.
Hold on for the vote. His radio is on.
No, it's off.
Guys, ready?
Yeah.
You're listening to Smooth, the 98.1 Love Music, Love Life. You are welcome. You're inside of Smooth Breakfast for Hump of the Week Wednesday. And of course, it's time for Freshly Pressed 981. It's our newspaper, in-depth newspaper analysis show where we get our analysts, very quality set of analysts here in the studio to give us, just in-depth look at today's headline stories. My name is Judith TB. Joining me live in the studio is, of course, Devo Okore and Lakunle. Good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Judith, Lakule, Eku, and the lies.
Lakunle.
Good morning, Judith. Good morning, Jimmy. Good morning, Lagos.
Devo, you're being mischievous this morning. I don't know
Okay.
if I don't know what to say about it, but I mean, again, you can join the conversation. All right, so go on to our YouTube page. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're at Smooth981 on YouTube. That's at Smooth981 on YouTube. You can also send us a WhatsApp message to 0809 4440981. Again, 0809 444 0981. We're going to get into the stories, shall we? And we're going to take this one from the Guardian newspaper. I don't know, but I think I know quite a number of persons have been waiting for a statement from this particular individual. So it comes at no surprise hearing his statement. But anyway, this is coming from Guardian newspaper. Lai Mohammed says Lagos hashtag NSAS report filled with errors. Nigerian's Information Minister Lai Mohammed Tuesday said that the federal government cannot accept the report of a judicial panel set up to investigate the attack on armed hashtag NSAS protesters at Lekki Toll Gate on October 2020. The Mohammed said the report, which indicted the Nigerian Army, Police, and Lekki Conservation Concession Company, is filled with errors and contradictions. And the panel said the attack by Nigerian security forces could, in context, be described as a massacre. But Mohammed maintained that the government believed there was no massacre. Devo.
Yes. Well, like I said, hashtag end the lies. But what we have here is the federal government's, let's call it the preliminary position, because they do opine that the official report is not yet out. But the truth is, whenever the federal government speaks, obviously it's going to come with weight, even if it's an initial perspective. And Lai Mohammed is not just an individual, he is the information minister for the federal government. So we will take this position as a position of the government in power, and to some extent, by extension, the ruling party at large. And we'll quote him in some areas because here we go again with the back and forth in terms of reversal of positions, reversal of what has happened. If you remember at the time when this took place after the October 2020 incidents, which obviously has been debated by many as to what happened, even though it was caught on video, even though some instances were written and some people experienced it. A judicial panel was instituted, which was part of what the federal government took action in various states that incidents happened. The NSARD's protest took place. And the Lagos State Tribunal, which submitted this report after many, many months of hearing various cases. And if you remember, we like to, in quotes, as time goes, we change the narrative. Remember, the NSARS protest was a protest against police brutality. And yes, at some point, it looked as if it was morphing into a protest against bad governance, all right? Now, at some point, with the agitation that escalated, they then saw themselves being attacked by hoodlums, which was interpreted that the NSARS process was hijacked or that it had a political undertone to it,
Mm-hmm.
at which points the government took a position, which was the state government and the presence of the military, who we all saw on screen, and for those who witnessed it, ammunition was used. However, that has been debated until date. Once this report was released, and it because the report has not been released, the Lagos State simply said that it was leaked, and based on the leaked reports, that they would make an official white paper to the public so that people could digest it fully. Unfortunately, and when I say unfortunately, because of the leaked aspect of it, there has been much reviews and positions on this. Now, this is what Lai Mohammed did say in summary, that there's absolutely nothing in the reports that is circulating to make us change our stand that there was no massacre at Lekki. All right. Now, the report was riddled with errors, inconsistencies, discrepancies, innuendos, and conclusions that are not supported by evidence. The document cannot be relied on and is not yet officially public, he added. So, up until this point, either here or even from the federal government's point of view, we're all speaking from conjecture.
Mm.
It's painful because we would like the report to be released as fast as possible
Possible.
so that we can begin to tear it apart. There's been so many even published articles in the papers as to people taking views either for or against what has been released. But what I would say is this: one, the state government should release it as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
They did mention end of the month, and we expect Sanwo-Olu to abide by his word on that. Two, even though we may refrain from the full analysis of it, um, people still have a strong sense of what they believe happened, okay? And they believe what they've seen in the leaked report more or less justifies what the public sentiment was. And to this public sentiment, the federal government needs to be very careful because already the trust deficit that the largest constituency in the country, which are the youth, who form 150 million of the 200 million population that we have, is at its lowest ebb. And whether they like it or not, come the next election, if the youth really follow by the sentiment that was gathered with the NSARS, this administration may not find it to their benefit. Now, and this is where we begin to speak of body language. And justice needs to be seen. You know, when they say justice should be dispensed and be seen, people at the end of the day should be able to believe and trust their government when they say they have acted in their best interest. So we await the full release of the report so that we can trash it out fully and begin to hold some people to account for what happened that day.
All right, let's move on now. Lachlan, I'm going to come to you for this one. This is from Punch newspaper. The reps pass bill to end degree HE dichotomy. This is the House. The House of Representatives has passed a bill seeking to end the dichotomy between university degrees and the higher national diplomas awarded by polytechnics. The bill proposes to make it a crime for any person or organization, both in the public and private sectors, to discriminate against HND certificate holders. It passed the third reading at the plenary on Tuesday. Your thoughts on this, Lachlan?
All right. Um, this bill has passed the third reading, so I'm assuming that the next step is for it to be adopted in a plenary session and passed on to the president for his assent. Now, before we came on air, I was just saying that this might end up being, we're trying to legislate on something that ordinarily should not be an issue of legislation. When we're talking about this dichotomy that we are criminalizing in this bill, is it in respect of access to employment that I cannot advertise and say only university graduates should apply? Is it in terms of if you are the job, I can forget your qualification and I can look at how good you are on the job that you're doing, the role that I've defined for you to do in the job? Is it in terms of if in public service, I am not saying because you have HND, then you cannot be promoted beyond a certain level because that is what the law says. if it is, or is it in terms of, okay, as good as you are, I can increase your salary the same way I increase salaries for other people in my employment. If it's in any of these four places, all well and good, beautiful. But when we start to stretch this further, I'm sure people will misinterpret this to mean that if, for example, I have an HND in, say, engineering, for example, and then they will start to equate it to somebody who has a BSc or Bachelor of Engineering degree. I think that at that point, we will be doing something that is antithetical to the processes
Academics.
of the profession itself. In engineering that I know, which is my primary industry, there are technologists, there are technicians, and there are engineers. And the roles are well defined, and where you get the qualification to be either of these three are well defined. So you will not find a technologist doing the job of a technician, and you will not find an engineer doing the job of a technologist, and so on and so forth. It's well defined. Now, where the issue is now for me is, I think that, or rather, I hoped that in coming up with this bill, the promoters of this bill had consulted all professional bodies that have this this kind of issue that I have described.
It's
Hold on a moment.
It's obvious they haven't.
Hold on. I hope that they have consulted them. And if they have not, I hope that these professional bodies who may listen to us today or who may read this story today should start to engage the national and the House of Representatives at the topmost level to get this thing clear, so that at the point when it becomes law, because the law is saying here that they are criminalizing it. So if I feel I've been discriminated against, I can approach a court, and then who's the person who's discriminated against me can go to jail for 2 years, and 2 years or a fine of 1 million naira, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So I think it's at this point that we need to get this clarification clear, so
Well,
that those confusion does not come in future after this bill has been signed into law.
I would even say that it's a legislation in error. This dichotomy or this debate has existed for a long time, where most people would say, oh, you don't give the same rights that you give degree holders to HND holders. If you are educated properly, you will understand that the roles are different. They're headed towards different directions. Now, what has happened is that this confusion, because of let's call it the mismanagement of education, as well as also at the employment level or recruitment level, this misunderstanding has set in place for someone to think that at a certain point, if I was educated with this degree or this diploma, that we should be at par, or maybe on the job I'm actually doing more than the other person. No, it is in error. It should have been stated from the beginning. And the problem is, maybe because the economy hasn't grown or developed as it should. So you haven't seen the full development whereby those who are trained for engineering go into their specific role, those who are trained for higher national diploma go into their own specific roles, and those
what they're
who are
being taught to do.
yes, even vocational studies, even the fact that you are a technician or you study diploma, you stopped at OND level or at maybe HND level, does not prohibit your growth in your profession
Or being
in the
gainfully
future.
employed.
Yes, but you cannot also dictate to your employers that, oh, I have to, etc. Which is why they set what do you call it, criteria that, for example, oh, for you to work at this level, you must have obtained A, B, C, D.
And
It's
that's why
it's
there are also
unfortunate that we're
postgraduate courses as
yes,
well, so
it's
you can
unfortunate that
advance
we're
in your
having this
education.
conversation because it's in complete error. Because what you intend to do is to equate HND to the BEng, which is not so. And now it's been politicized, and soon it will be cast into law. It's unfortunate.
You wanted to add something to
There
that,
are even
Mohammed?
conversion programs that you can take if you feel you wish to move from being a technologist to technician, or from technician to become an engineer, for example. So the things, the processes that all of these things can happen are already in place. So I don't understand why we are now legislating on this issue. So the challenge now is for all the professional bodies in accounting, engineering, because those are the most two places where majority of these things happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? To engage the House of Assembly and get this sorted out before this thing is passed into law.
Wonderful. Let's move on now. We're going to Punch newspaper. This time we're talking about agriculture. Devon, I'm coming to you for this one. Nigeria leading globally in yam, cassava, rice production. Oh, that's Lakunle. I'm really sorry for that. So Lakunle, I'm coming to you for this one. Nigeria leading globally in yam, cassava, rice production. Federal government since the past 3 years, Nigeria has been leading globally in the production of yam, palm oil, cassava, maize, and rice, and that's the federal government. That's what they're saying here. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohammed Mahmoud, disclosed this at the maiden edition of the National Agribusiness Stakeholders and Investment Summit in Abuja on Tuesday. Now, he told delegates at the summit that Nigeria's agricultural potential was huge, which we know, but is it, I mean, there's still insecurity when it comes to food or something, so is that
Okay,
as well?
great news that we've sustained this leadership in production of yam and cassava. I've known this since I was in primary school, and that's not less than 30 years ago, you know. So if we have done it for 30 years, I think that there's something possibly we're doing good, and then there's something that we can do better. Now, we have added rice to the numbers. Okay, so if we are in those three things, but what does it translate to in the markets? What does it translate to in terms of income for for the country? Now, it brings forth those arguments about how does this product, how do they get to the end consumer? We're talking about the logistics of transporting, storage. Majority of those things, you will find out that they're also seasonal. You know, our cassava, a certain period of the year, we have it excess, and that's when the prices of all cassava derivatives drop. Then you know that, okay, this is cassava season. And then when the season or when the other season comes, that's when the price of all those derivatives go up. But on a good day, to reflect that we're actually the leading producer of those things, we should have a almost flat pricing all year round.
Yes.
If everything is getting to the market.
Yes.
The same thing for yam. Let me make an hypothetical position. Do we produce up to 200 million tubers of yam a year, or maybe a month? Because that would mean that each Nigerian would have one tuber of yam a month. If we do, where are they? I think 4 years ago, the Minister of Agriculture then, Audu Ogbe, started through the Ministry of Agriculture, started a program of exporting Nigerian yam to Europe. What has happened to that program? Did it end with him? Did it end with him because he's no longer in office? Did it end because there was no yam to export anymore? So the point is not enough to just say that we produce the most. What are we doing with it? Because a nation that can feed itself has solved more than 50% of its problems. And that's what we should focus on, what we do with these huge numbers.
All right, we have messages here. This is Plato Isaac at Isol, and he goes, it's a sad one that the political class never gets tired of playing mind games with a man on the street. Senator Dino once sent some warning signals, which I see had fallen on deaf ears. Someone is planning on feeding fat on our future. A day cometh when heads would roll. Emeka from Ikeja goes, he goes, I still don't get it. Is it possible that the NSAS report is actually authentic? Now, how come it is riddled with basic errors and contradictions? I mean, couldn't they have done a tidier job of the report? I hope that it is not the authentic report. And it goes on to say, truth be told, soldiers and other security agencies did not cover themselves in glory, and that should be the major issue. The arguments for massacre are quite weak, and I believe that is distracting us from dealing with the real issues, and this ragtag report hasn't helped matters. Samuel from Lekki goes, good morning, crew. Your analyst is right in saying the youths can use the election to pay back this administration, but the sad truth is that the youths either do not have PVC or are scared of going to vote due to insecurity, or they do not even believe in the electoral process, or the politicians would just rig it. Whatever the issue, we must take action for a better life. Cornelius from Agbara says, what will you expect from Mr. Lie? When you lie, you need additional lies to cover up previous lie. That is what Lie is doing. If the leaked report is not substantial, then he should wait until official report is released. He should stop widening the trust gap already created. Femi here with the dichotomy of the qualification is mismatched. Lakule, do our lawmakers listen? No, they don't. They feel they know it all. They don't listen to professional advice, nor do they consider the stakeholder. It's all about their selfish interests. We see this every day. And that's from Oluwafemi there. Emmanuel, okay, you're replying to, he goes, good morning. Please, this rep may cause more problem. For instance, you can't use a HND to register for corporate membership in the NSE. That's the Nigeria Society of Engineer. Let them remove it.
How can
And and this is Cisco Delgado. Good morning, Devo. Good morning, Judith. Good morning, all. Thanks for defining the clear differences between the bachelor's engineering and HND degrees and roles of each category. It just makes no sense. And that's from him there. We move on now because we're pretty much out of time. So guys, we have about a minute now to just pretty much wrap up on our analysis here. So a minute to you guys. And coming to you, Devo, for this one. The federal government to replace fuel subsidy with monthly 5,000 naira transport grants to 40 million poor Nigerians. The federal government disclosed this on Tuesday that it is planning the payment of a monthly 5,000 naira transport grants to between 30 million and 40 million poor Nigerians as it prepares to remove the subsidy on petroleum, otherwise, of course, known as fuel, next year. And the Minister of Finance, he made budget and planning, national planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, she disclosed this yesterday during a launch of the World Bank's Nigeria's Development Update. But before you have the story, go ahead and let us know.
Yes, this is a good time to play the song. Where go find them? Zombie. This is the time. Because you see, once again, we're hearing the sounds of rent-seeking programs. And what I hate to judge before I've analyzed. However, you see, we've been looking at ways of removing the subsidy, which is government participation in the pricing of a product that we all use, petroleum. And it has sucked and bled the little paltry funds that we have dry at 120 billion per month, which runs into about 1.4 trillion annually. Now, in the removal of this, which is not stated in this article, they said because they believe that many people would not be able to afford the new price of fuel because it would be more or less fixed on market prices. As long as crude is high, the price is going to be high, and currently it's been pitched at maybe 350 thereabouts, per liter. So they're saying that they would create some form of palliative, some form of social safety net scheme to provide about 5,000 naira grants to about 40 million poor Nigerians. Okay. Now, what this comes to is that at 5,000 naira times 40 million Nigerians, it comes to about 200 billion that will be spent monthly just to. So, have you done us any service? Have you replaced the subsidy? You've simply taken Rob from Paul and paid Peter. I mean, what are we? I really don't understand what was done here. Now, the real fiscal and would I say economic view should be, how do you empower Nigerians? Because if, as they say, if you don't teach people how to fish, you can't really sustain giving them charity. You can't really sustain giving them manna or giving them, what do you call it, freebies on a daily basis. It's because we don't have enough to maintain the subsidy. That's why we're trying to pull out of it. Now, you simply said in this message that you're going to take from one and give to another. Now, I really would love it. The truth is, this is a plan, so it's not something they're doing just yet. Because even the, well, we don't have the NNPC anymore. Even the Petroleum Ministry hasn't put a date as to when this subsidy would be finally removed.
The arithmetic of it is that we're going to save 3.2 trillion naira and then spend 2.4 trillion naira on the transportation. That's the simple arithmetic that this is all about.
Let's move on to this day. Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NCPRC, has outlined national plans to deal with the recent oil spill in Santa Barbara and Nambe Bayelsa State. It stated that when followed, the plan will help curb the leak at the Atio Southern Eastern Exploration and Production Company facility as investigations in the cause of the spill continues by newly created commission. With climate change, with everything going on, are we still at this juncture? Can't we figure it out once and for all? Luckily.
Um, Let me pick it from where you ended. Don't forget that Mr. President just signed Nigeria as a security to the zero um, carbon emission by 2060. So
Right.
this is part of what when we spoke about it here that day, that was one of the things we said, that what was our plan to achieve that thing in 2060. The excuse everybody hides under is Africa contributes less than 5% of carbon emission in the world today. That's the excuse all of us hide under, that because it's 5% from us. Why should we bother? But it's real. Now, to the crux of this story, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission is one of the legacy companies of the defunct Department of Petroleum Resources. Their job, as it were, in this matter is the reason for this story is because I think sometime earlier this month, I think on the 5th, there was some leakage at one of the ITO's locations, and so they are promising that they are investigating the cause of the leak, and that they are going to follow through with the cleanup, and that they would, after finding out what caused it, they will ensure that the company is held responsible, and or whoever it is that should be held responsible will be, and they will ensure that it does not happen again. Now, the one that the words that were used that always some kind of trips me with government or government agencies is the word global best practices. Now, if we were using global best practices,
we wouldn't
so
be here.
how come then that these leakages happen? What impact has that had on the people of that area since November 5th when that spill happened? What has been done to date? Where we are still investigating. This is the third week. We're still investigating. When is the actual cleanup going to start? The same thing that has happened, we know sometime in 2019 or 2017, when we launched a Niger Delta cleanup. Has it even started? If that one that was launched on primetime TV in front of the whole world has not even started, not talk of this one. So there are so many things to speak about in all of these things, but we will just believe that because they have said it, they are now a smaller organization whose focus is in regulating exploration. It will be easier for them to manage this kind of things, and I hopefully hope that they would handle this properly and such things will happen again.
Let's move on now. We're coming to insecurity. This is from this day newspaper. Before I'm coming to you for this one, we have 1 minute on this. United Nations Children's Fund (UNICEF) has said that there have been 200. No, I take that back. There have been 25 attacks on Nigerian schools this year, with 1,440 students adopted. Now, this statistics was given on Tuesday, even as UNICEF revealed that over the past 5 years, the West and Central African region had consistently had some of the highest numbers of United Nations verified grave violations against children in armed conflict.
Well, I think you've kind of summarized it there. And I think we all know UNICEF does represent the best interests of children globally. And they're stating facts that Nigeria has not been the best place for a child to grow up in, especially with the insurgency that has been on for over almost 10 years now. And those children have suffered not just being abducted, they've been out of school. Some have been used for sexual violence, some have been used for forced labor, as well as
Child bride, forced
child
marriage.
marriage, all forms. Now, this is a clear signal and an indicator as to the level and state of insecurity within the country, because it's a constitutional right that children are protected. Children are citizens also. And because they cannot help themselves, that is where the government comes in. So this government, this is a litmus indicator of where we are. And we really, really, really need to take discrete measures to ensure that the least and weak among us, that's the women and children, can live their lives. And I mean, in an instance where even grown men or adults cannot walk in some certain locations without fear of being attacked or mauled
Kidnapped.
away, how much more children? And this is where this leads to breakdown in society because they can't get the rightful education. Many of them are easily recruited because they're not properly educated. And when you hear what they're recruited for, sometimes it's not even out of fear. They're bribed with as little as 1,000 or 2,000 naira, and they become terrorists. So it's a damning report, and I'm hoping the federal government and state governments are heightening their efforts to be able to address this matter.
Wonderful stuff there. Let's just go on to messages because we're pretty much out of time. This is Biola Olaniyo, and it goes, if according to the analyst, we currently expend about 1.4 trillion naira on fuel subsidy per annum. Now government plans to pay 2.4 trillion naira as palliative to 40 million poor Nigerians. Do they really think about these numbers? That's from Biola de Lagbaja and Neon goes, why don't we simply build new refineries, whether modular or otherwise, give incentives to oil majors to also participate in the process. This way, we won't need subsidies or grants. Baba Femi and Onagbeson comes in with, who is rating Nigeria as leaders in global yam production? The price of yam in the local market it simply debunks this report. Price of yam, like other food items, has continued to rise daily in the market. We have messages here. This is Ian Kani goes, but I thought we all agreed to wait for the white paper report. So what's the uncle lies now? This man specifically just loves to mess things up. Even the president told the U.S. Secretary of State that he's going to wait for the states. And then he goes on to say, Lakunle, on this HND BSc matter, we have gotten it all. This whole problem started when limitations were placed on a certain certificate. Take, for example, an HND holder decides to go for DE. Explain to me why an HND holder should go down to 200 level. And then he goes on to say, Lakunle, yes, maybe there's something wrong with the bill, but are you aware that some HND holders go on for PGD and still don't get admitted for MSc? Did you pick holes in that? Do you now you're picking holes in the bill? That's double standard. Luckily, do you have any response to that?
Well, just like Divu said, quite a number of the things is about the miseducation and the way our education system has fallen apart. That's why we're having this conversation about going for a PGD, going for MSc. Actually, the basic qualification you need to practice, I'm going back to my primary industry engineer, is your first degree in engineering. Anything else you have after is desirable, is beautiful. But once you have your BSc, you can then apply to the NSC. You don't even qualify to apply to NSC if you don't have that degree. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not an issue of what is good.
It's not your feelings.
It's not about feelings.
Go and
it's not
earn it.
emotional.
Go and earn it.
And then they don't. If you have an HND, you don't go to 200 level. You go to 300 level to start.
All right, that brings us to the very end, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Remember that you can follow Lakunle is at Lakunle70 on social media, as well at Devo Okore on social media as well. My name is Judith TV. You can find me on Instagram. I am at Judith TV. This brings us to the end of Freshly Pressed 981. I see all of our messages on WhatsApp, and I'll take them inside of Lagos Talks 981. So join us then at 8:10 a.m. It's a smooth breakfast. Stay with us.
It's not emotional about this thing.
It's difficult. I have like 20 messages and I just cannot. Like,
it's difficult to understand.
Express yourself. I'm listening.
Yeah,
okay. It's amazing that we are having this conversation. It's not something that we should be talking about. It's not about being emotional.
I
have friends who went to the Polytechnic.
Yeah.
Who are even more brilliant than I am. But the thing is that they have gone to take that option. So you stay in that place, then you can rise to the top in that line.
You know where this came from.
See, the idea that the idea that you are barring them in terms of promotion, in terms of salary, in terms of in public service, that they cannot go beyond a certain place. The idea that you cannot apply for a job if it's open. Those ones, fine, yes. But when we talk about your role in the profession itself, it is defined.
I
You
hear
can't
you.
change that.
I hear you perfectly well, but also I think that Yinka has a point because there are a number of programs that when you go for the number of universities that if you have HND and you're going in, but I don't think about I think it's the OND part. So if you have an OND and you go there,
Let me
if
just
you
quickly
can't get
say.
a
Let me
PGD,
just
you
quickly
have
say.
to go back
If
and
you
in
have
one
get
ONG,
minute.
that's
You
you
can't
have
get
spent 2
PGD.
years
No,
in
And
not
the
that's
even-
2 years
polytechnic.
now. So
Not
So
even
technically,
you
ONG.
wanted to
yeah,
equate you with somebody who spent
no,
5 years in
5 years.
university.
So there's a difference.
We're
there.
not
Oh.
even trying to set any standard here. It is fixed. It's already standardized
Standard.
locally. Now, let me say something. If you enter the program and you're not okay with the future outcome of that program, go and study. It's like someone who had a degree and finished with law. And then he liked what was happening with medical doctors and now said, well, I have a degree also. I think you should take me into medicine and add, like, give me the advantage of 3 years because I have law. No, you will go back to year one and go through the rudiments and earn it before you were called a medical doctor. It's the same practice here. It is not by way of feelings. It's not by way of I'm not being promoted because I don't have. If you don't like it, go back again. If you know you cannot follow that path, and remember, because like I said, the educational system has broken down. So
Yeah.
many people who cannot pass JAM or do not get admitted, they now take
when you go
polytechnics
polytechnic and
as
colleges
the
of
second
education.
option just to stay in school
Yeah.
and then end up giving us headache at the other side by saying, oh, I've finished my education yet I can. Please.
It's not emotional at all. There's no emotions about this.
No, absolutely. I get you 100. But I guess
Thank
what.
you to YouTube, guys.
Oh, thanks to
Bye,
YouTube.
bye.
But I get what you guys trying to say perfectly well.
Yes, I
because
do.
I mean I understand. There are many persons who have gotten